Your mind has thousand tabs open. Your attention is no longer yours. It has been hijacked by unfinished inner movements. One tab is a girl, one tab is money, one tab is proving yourself, one tab is regret, one tab is fantasy, one tab is fear, one tab is comparison, one tab is craving validation, one tab is replaying the past, one tab is rehearsing the future, and you believe all of this is thinking. It is not thinking, it is psychic noise. Thinking solves, noise circulates. A man with thousand tabs open cannot hear reality anymore. He can only hear himself. A crowded mind cannot do great work. Great work requires depth. Depth requires undivided attention. Undivided attention is impossible when your psyche is fragmented across 20 emotional worlds. Most people bring their entire psychological drama into their work. They are not writing the code, they are writing code while fearing failure, craving success, imagining applause, comparing themselves, escaping loneliness, carrying resentment, seeking identity. Their work becomes contaminated. This is why most work lacks power. It is produced by scattered minds. Great work emerges from inner stillness. Not because stillness is spiritual, because stillness concentrates energy. Sunlight scattered warms the skin. Sunlight focused becomes fire. I don't need more motivation. I need fewer tabs. Motivation is overrated. A noisy man constantly seeks motivation because his energy leaks in every direction. He watches videos, reads quotes, consumes inspiration. But inspiration poured into a leaking vessel is wasted. You think you need more fuel. Often you need fewer leaks. A man with no inner friction does not require constant motivation. He moves naturally like a river downhill. Clean action is effortless compared to conflicted action. The exhausted man says, how do I motivate myself? The clear man says, why am I carrying so much noise? One seeks more force, the other removes resistance. Only one becomes free. Silence closes unnecessary tabs. Silence reveals what noise was hiding. Most people use stimulation to avoid meeting themselves. Music, scrolling, podcasts, conversations, fantasy, constant consumption. Without stimulation, they begin hearing the machinery of their own mind, and what they discover frightens them. Repetitive fears, repetitive cravings, repetitive fantasies, repetitive self concern. The same thoughts wearing different masks. Silence exposes this repetition, and once clearly seen, many tabs lose their authority. You realize this thought is not wisdom, it is habit. That realization closes tabs automatically, not through discipline, through seeing. Truth dissolves illusion. I'm not working, I'm overheating. Overheating means the system is consuming enormous energy without meaningful output, like a laptop running 47 applications simultaneously. The fan spins loudly, the machine becomes hot, the battery drains rapidly, yet very little important work gets done. This is modern man. He calls this ambition, but much of it is internal chaos mistaken for effort. True work has simplicity. One mind, one direction, one movement. No unnecessary inner commentary, no psychological theater, just action. The greatest performers are not those with the most energy, they are those wasting the least energy. And this is the deepest illusion. You think your suffering comes from doing too much, often it comes from carrying too much. What you are beginning to see is not a productivity problem, it is friction, inner friction. A human being can survive enormous amounts of work. What destroys him is contradiction. One part of him wants silence, another wants stimulation. One part wants discipline, another wants fantasy. One part wants truth, another wants escape. And all of these parts are running simultaneously like background applications consuming RAM. So when you sit to work, the body is present, but the psyche is fragmented. This is why you feel exhausted even when you have not truly done anything. Because thinking is not action, Mental movement is not progress. Inner noise gives the illusion of movement. A man with 1,000 browser tabs open feels busy, but almost none of those tabs are producing anything. They are only draining processing power. You said something important. I'm not working, I'm overheating. Yes, most people are overheating their nervous system and calling it ambition. They are carrying unfinished emotional conversations, imagined future scenarios, sexual craving, comparison, regret, identity maintenance, fantasy victories, fear of missing out, self judgment, replay loops. And then they wonder why a simple task feels heavy. The mind becomes like a phone with 2% battery running 47 apps. Now, here is the deeper illusion. You believe those tabs are important because the mind presents them as urgent. But urgency is not importance. The mind survives through unfinished loops. It constantly says, solve me, think about me, figure this out, imagine this outcome, replay that moment, what if? And the foolish person obeys every notification. The wise person begins to see just because a thought appears does not mean it deserves energy. This is the beginning of intelligence, not controlling thought, seeing thought clearly. Most people try to manage their mind, but management still assumes every tab matters. You are beginning to realize many tabs should simply be closed, not solved, closed. There is a difference. For example, a fantasy about a woman is not a problem to solve. A future argument is not a strategy session. Imaginary validation is not preparation. Comparing your life to others is not analysis. These are psychic leaks, and every leak steals life force. Another illusion. People think rest means entertainment. No, entertainment often adds more tabs. Real rest is reduction of inner movement. This is why sometimes sitting quietly for 1 hour restores more energy than sleeping 8 hours with a disturbed mind. Because the energy loss was never physical, it was cognitive friction. Now, something deeper. You said, at least understand what I'm going through. This is critical because awareness itself starts dissolving unnecessary movement. A thought survives through unconscious participation. The moment you deeply observe it without becoming it, something changes. You begin to see cravings arise and fade. Fears are repetitive patterns. Fantasies are recycled cinema. The mind keeps selling the same story in different clothes. And suddenly the spell weakens. This is why silence is powerful. Not because silence is peaceful, but because silence exposes the machinery of the mind. Most people avoid silence because they are terrified of meeting their unfinished inner world. So they scroll, talk, watch, consume, stimulate, react constantly. You are starting to see another possibility. Maybe clarity is more valuable than effort. A clear mind with one direction can outperform a noisy mind with enormous motivation. Because energy scattered is energy lost. The final illusion is this: you think you need more force. Often you need less noise, less inner argument, less compulsive thinking, less emotional leakage, less fantasy, less self concern. And from that silence, action becomes simple again. Not dramatic, simple. One task, one movement, one conversation, one workout, one meal, one step. A sharp mind is not a crowded mind. A sharp mind is an undivided mind. Listen, there is a man sitting before a glowing screen at 11:47 pm. The room is quiet, but his mind is not. 23 tabs are open on the browser. Slack notifications blink in the corner. A half written proposal sits abandoned. 3 YouTube videos are past midway. A WhatsApp message from 2 hours ago remains unanswered. A sales target whispers in the background. A memory of a woman enters and exits like a thief. An imagined future conversation rehearses itself again. A comparison with another man silently poisons the air. And still, he tells himself, I must focus. So he pushes harder. Another coffee, another playlist, another productivity hack, another attempt to force concentration. But something strange happens. The harder he pushes, the heavier his mind becomes. Because he misunderstands the problem. He thinks he lacks discipline, but discipline was never the issue. The issue is fragmentation. His inner world resembles a browser with 1,000 tabs open, and each tab is consuming energy. One tab says, "What if she never loved you?" Another whispers, "You are behind in life." Another says, "Imagine becoming successful and proving everyone wrong." Another plays fantasy scenes. Another replays shame. Another fears the future. Another craves pleasure. Another seeks validation. And all of them are speaking at once, not loudly, but continuously, like invisible mosquitoes feeding on attention. So when he sits to work, he's not truly working. He is carrying a crowded city inside his skull. Every thought pulls him in a different direction. One part of him is writing the email, another is imagining applause, another is afraid of failure, another wants escape, another wants rest, another wants stimulation. His body sits in one chair, but his psyche sits in 50 places. This is why even small tasks feel exhausting, not because the work is hard, but because the mind is divided. A divided mind leaks life force. Then one day, out of exhaustion, the man stops fighting, not out of wisdom, out of fatigue. He closes the laptop, sits in silence. No music, no scrolling, no stimulation. At first, it feels unbearable because now he can hear the taps, the unfinished conversations, the craving, the loneliness, the fear, the self concern, the noise. Most people run away at this moment. He stays, and slowly, something remarkable begins to happen. He realizes not every tab deserves to remain open. Many tabs were never important, they only pretended to be. The imagined arguments, the fantasy relationships, the future victories, the replayed embarrassments, the comparison, the craving to be seen, all psychic advertisements. He begins closing them one by one, not through force, through understanding, and with every closed tab, something returns to him: attention, breath, clarity, energy, presence. Eventually, only one tab remains open: the work itself. And for the first time in months, he notices something strange. The work is not heavy anymore because now his entire being is moving in one direction. This is concentration, not forcing the mind to work, but removing what is secretly draining it. A powerful man is not a man with more energy. A powerful man is a man with fewer leaks. And silence. Silence is the hand that closes unnecessary tabs. In the end, the goal is not to become a man who can handle 1,000 tabs. The goal is to become a man who no longer opens unnecessary ones. A quiet mind is not an empty mind. It is a mind that no longer wastes his life arguing with shadows. Most people spend their lives exhausted not because reality is heavy, but because they are carrying imagined futures, replayed pasts, cravings mistaken for needs, noise mistaken for intelligence, mental movement mistaken for progress, and so they overheat. The truly dangerous man is not the most motivated man, it is the man whose energy is undivided, the man with fewer leaks, fewer inner arguments, fewer compulsions, fewer psychological dependencies. Because when attention is whole, even ordinary action gains immense power. Then work is no longer struggle, it becomes clean, simple, direct, like an arrow leaving the bow. And perhaps this is the real meaning of peace, not the absence of work, but the absence of unnecessary inner noise while doing it.